All right, welcome to this week's edition of the Dugout Dish podcast. I'm Andy Kiriakides, and I'm here with my co-host, Keith Glasser. Keith, how we doing?
Great, how are you?
I'm excited. We have a special guest, longtime friend, esteemed colleague, the associate head coach from Catholic University, Bobby Picardo, is joining us today. Bobby, thanks for coming.
As they say in sports radio, first time, long time. First time caller, long time listener to the podcast. It's great to be here. Special shout out to your biggest fan, my wife.
Yep.
She doesn't miss an episode as well, so I'm hoping she tunes in to this one next week. That'd be great. So shout out to my wife.
Fantastic. Jenny, big fan.
Big fan. Big, long time listener. We're going to have Jenny on here eventually.
The wives' perspective. I think that's a great show.
Absolutely. Well, Bobby, before we start firing questions off, give us a rundown of kind of how you got to where you are in college baseball right now.
Absolutely. So as the associate head coach of the program I went to, I played at Catholic from 2005 to 2009, where we were really fortunate to win the first two conference championships in the D3 era in 08 and 09. I graduated on a Saturday, and on Monday morning, I was wearing a hot dog suit on the corner of Route 29 in Trenton, New Jersey, advertising free food, specifically free hot dogs that night. I interned for the AA affiliate of the New York Yankees. A very humbling experience to be in your cap and gown, go out to the fancy dinner with family, and then all of a sudden you are standing on a busy highway in a major state capital hawking free food. I did that, I interned with the Thunder that entire summer. I was offered a job in ticket sales that September, and I can confidently say that time in minor league baseball, which ultimately wound up being 3.5 years deep into the summer of 2012, is a proving ground for anyone in any industry to find out what you like and what you don't like to do. Minor league baseball is an all hands on deck. Everyone pulls the tarp, literally and figuratively experience. You're cleaning seats hours after making, a $500 ticket sale. But ultimately, I realized that I was killing myself for commission on $8 tickets. And the next move in that life would be an assistant general manager of a smaller team and having to move. And frankly, I was done on the sales side. And I always told myself that the minute I was unhappy driving to the ballpark was when I had to get out. I was in charge of non-Thunder events, as in high school baseball, college baseball, the baseball camp, and rentals. And I each passing month, I missed being in the dugout more and more. I missed being in between the white lines. I missed, honestly, having a direct impact on young adults. I headed the internship program, and that's what really wanted to make me get back into coaching. And so on a January day, I realized I was unhappy driving the Thunder Road. Called our then athletic director at Catholic, Mike Allen, who's now the president of Barry University down in Miami. And I said, Mike, I want back in. I had sat with Mike the previous May at the NCAA tournament, and we talked about, my career. And I had said that it would be fun to come back and help Ross Antoli, the head coach at Catholic, who's been there for 39 seasons. So he's coached, he was my coach, as well as two others on our coaching staff right now. And I don't know what got into me that night, but I remember talking to Mike on the phone for a while, and I jokingly said that, Mike, I think in 10 years we can get to a College World Series, and we got there in 9. But I did. And he brought that up to me last time I talked to him, is that I made that prediction. It just, I don't know. I wanted back in. I think a lot of guys from our school graduate and they're like, I wish I had another year, in a good way. Not like, oh, they have regrets, but everything just keeps getting better year in and year out. Each class graduates with more wins than the class in front of them and has accomplished more than the class in front of them, whether it be individual accolades or team accolades. But that excitement's been pretty addicting, and that's kind of what keeps me going back. And honestly, I think I speak for the other coaches on staff, where I think we're all chasing this thing here. But that's kind of my road back home to DC. For a long time, when asked where I was from, I'd probably say New Jersey. and still do from time to time. But DC's home now, and quite frankly, the goal is to win a national championship.
Heck yeah, it is. I mean, the run you guys went on last year was cool, and I know there were some other complications that you were dealing with personally, flying back and forth. Now we got a little Picardo to thank, so the world's better for that. But you know that me and Keith were following that extremely closely, and it's been cool to watch you guys build that up. And we both know Ross, and obviously we know you well, and we follow you guys closely. So yeah,
I've been really fortunate to be around guys that put in some incredibly long hours and aren't afraid to try new things and are always trying to learn. I know that sounds so cliche right now to be a lifelong learner, to have a growth mindset, but like I vividly remember conversations with you, like standing at baseball heaven, talking pitching or talking defense, not to say like, all right, well, I know this guy can really pick it. I know what they're doing down there, but like, I want to learn things. I mean, I think about talking to Keith about catching in particular, like the stuff that I know nothing about is honestly the stuff that I have to learn and want to learn, and not just want to talk hitting, not just want to talk recruiting, not just want to talk shop, like ask questions from people that are with you for 14 hours on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, break on a Saturday, then Saturday or Sunday, Monday, do it all over again. But like, I think once you realize that you enjoy that stuff, that's when you really realize it's not work, where it's like you get parents that come up to you at the end of a long event and they're like, oh man, it's long days for you guys. I just kind of like look at them and I say, well, this is baseball. Like, this is we love this. Otherwise we wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, spot on. I mean, some of those conversations you have on the right field or left field line are some of the best ones you can have as a coach, because you get a chance to pick somebody's brain and say, hey man, I saw you guys, were really good at this year. Like, is there anything you changed philosophically? Or, sometimes the answer is, yeah, I mean, we just had a good team. But other times it's like, hey, we made a change and this is something that we focused on. And I mean, the guys, like, if you're a young coach who's listening to this and you think you're too proud to ask questions, like, you need to get comfortable with asking questions, because there's so much to learn. Like, people do different things, different terminology, different way to think of things, different way to organize. And man, it's the best way to learn. And to not think that you know everything is a really good place to start to get closer to knowing more.
Just when you think you know everything, you're about to get smacked in the face by this game real fast. Like, it comes to, I said about this past season, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. We only ever say that when we're struggling. All right, we get off to a bad start. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. We don't ever say that when we're cruising. And I think that's something that we learned this year. And then honestly, my best piece of advice for younger coaches would be understanding that you learn more in years that you lose than years that you win. Don't be that guy who only calls and talks about, and I say this to you guys on the phone, don't be the guy who only calls to talk on the phone when they're winning. Like, be honest, you should be calling people when you lose. Figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we're going to touch on this at some point, but how kids fail is a big part of the process. And I mean, it's inevitable, but yeah, we'll get on that a little bit later. But Coach Glass, you want to open up the question box here for Coach Picardo?
Sure, Bobby. The first question we ask everyone, since you're a longtime listener, but how do you guys go about identifying players at Catholic?
Well, the easy part is seeing a good baseball player. They hit well, they run well, they throw well, they pitch well. What we like to look for are guys that have shown improvement, because a lot of the events and a lot of the communication we've had with guys is over the course of 2 years, some longer, some a little bit shorter. But with technology now, you can go back and look at someone. And I love to look back at maybe their first video online and see what they ran. And I'm not saying the 60-yard dash, I'm not married to it in any way, but I love seeing a guy who was like a 7.5 runner as a sophomore get down to a 7.2. So like, that tells me right away, this kid works on the stuff that sucks to work on, because no one wakes up and says, oh, I can't wait to run today. Those that do run track and field, cross country, the baseball players don't do that. No one's waking up and saying, I can't wait to run today. I say it to guys all the time. We'd get up, we'd hit and we'd lift. We take ground balls. We throw heavy stuff against the wall if we're a pitcher now. But show me the guy that's going to strive to get a little bit better at the stuff that's hardest to work on, and that's foot speed, arm strength. That's a product of the Ross and Tolley School of Baseball recruiting. Is the two things that command the most playing time at the college level are foot speed and arm strength. And I always get kidded for trying to have 9 DHs in the field because I love hitting, but it really is looking for those hitters who know that to command playing time, they're going to have to do something defensively. And that means working on the two hardest things that are out there to improve. It's the hardest too. I stand by that. So that's what I look for guys that have shown improvement. I also look to see how guys handle failure. So when I get to an event or get to a game, I actually root for guys to struggle a little bit because I want to see how they handle that adversity. I'm not saying that every player that's ever slammed their helmet I've crossed off a list, but I want to see how ready they are to bounce back. There's a lot of emotion in this game, but the guys that can keep it to an even keel, that stands out to me a little bit in an event.
Yeah, I mean, I think Andy touched on it a little bit. I don't even know if we were talking about this yet or if we were live, but we've talked about it on here before too a lot. Like you can learn a lot more when kids struggle in the recruiting process than if everything's going super easy. And the same thing to your point. Like if you're, when you're losing as a coach, like you should be calling people and talking too. It's the same with players. Like we go through this process and like you're trying to figure out as a coach, like what is this kid going to be able to fit into our program? And is this kid going to be like, is he going to be coachable, and what does he do when he fails? Because as well as I do, and everyone who's come on here says, it's like you're going to get into the fall of your freshman year and you're going to get dominated. Whether or not you're like, there's going to be an outing where you're going to get just lashed on the hill. There's going to be pitchers that are going to be punching you out left and right. What are you going to do in those moments in your freshman year? And like, do they fit with me? Like, are they going to be coachable? Like, what does that look like? I think that's one thing that, we try to kind of hammer home to people is like, hey man, like it's okay to fail. Like you're going to fail. This game is a game of failure, but like how you respond to that, like people are watching. And I don't know about you, but I never wore anything RPI unless I was working at camp.
Right. It's, I mean, that's what's so nice too. I'm live from Ocean City, New Jersey right now, where when COVID hit, everything was shut down, but some states opened. And I remember school was shut down, came here with my family, and a travel team in Texas had a live stream on. And I tuned in. I watched on the front porch here just to get back into it, had my stopwatch out, but really used that opportunity to watch how some of these kids handled some things. And I remember circling some names on, hey, how he bounced right back. He had a bounce back inning. His second at bat was better. He didn't make the same, like he took a first pitch fastball, runners in scoring position his first time up. He didn't do it that second time. But that's what I mean is like, it's not just about going to the game anymore. What COVID taught us was we got to trust our eyes on film again. I think we all get wrapped up sometimes in being there. And there's a huge part of that. But if the technology is out there, I think you got to take advantage of it, but also still look for those little things a little bit. Like, but it's also like looking at a kid when they send an email, do they have feel in that the video has appropriate music? I'm not saying it has to be Vivaldi and classical music, but it can't be inappropriate. I want to be able to trust a guy if I open the weight room for him and I'm doing something else. He's not going to put on music that's going to get a coach in trouble. The best compliment we received, I think, this year was from another coach in the school. Was like, hey, your guys are in here all the time, and they've always put the clean version of the Spotify playlist on. And I was like, that's when a team is paying attention to what a coach is saying. So it's finding a way to look at some of those other things, how they carry themselves, not just this results based industry, 4 for 4, 2 doubles, a jack, and a single. Yeah, that's great. That's easy to look for. But how do they go about it?
No, I think one of the tricky things sometimes is getting kids to understand that even the moment it doesn't go their way can still be a positive, right? Like not just how you react to it, but talk to a couple guys hitting, and I don't know if this is something that you look at, Bobby, but one of the things that I've been queuing in on is can guys elevate the ball pull side? Like they got some hand strength, they got some bat speed, like they can get to some velocity. Like I think it's a good thing, and I want to be able to see a kid that can pull a ball pull side with a little bit of. And I've seen kids hit like a deep high fly ball to left field, right-handed hitter, and you can tell that they're not happy with it. But I want those kids to know like those are the swings that can cue a coach to like, okay, it's in there. Like you can fail on the score sheet and still be successful in the eyes of a coach, right? Like we all know the kid who goes 2 for 4 and he hit a 14 hopper through the 6 hole and he dumped one over the first baseman's head and he got a jam shot. And like, that's great. You got hits, but coaches are not looking at the results the way that players think that they are.
No, I've told guys before that in some of this 1-1 count showcase baseball that we've all been around a lot, I'll tell guys before the game, guys, the fastball's coming. And you'd be surprised with how many kids take that fastball. I tell kids all the time that I've recruited guys off of guys that were fouled the ball straight back on 1-1 in the showcase game. But I love the swing path. I didn't care about the result. I said, this kid is coachable. He listened, fouled it straight back. He just missed it. Hitting's the hardest thing to do in sports. But that kid's coachable right there. That shows me a lot. The old expression that scouts used to talk to players when I remember when Cuba was closed was they said you can't walk off the island, as in we want guys to swing. I jokingly say it to guys again, whereas you can't walk off this showcase. We're not. I don't go to see guys walk per se. When I want to see guys obviously with plate discipline, but I go out there and hunt like that. That timid does not play.
No, and it certainly won't play in college when you got guys are going to throw more strikes. You find yourself taking that 0-0 fastball that's catching a little bit too much white. Now that guy can get to his breaking ball. Now he can go to try to edge some stuff. Like the details when you get to college matter so much more. And like you don't get the freedom to take that first pitch if it's a good first pitch. Like one of the things that we used to preach at William and Mary is that it's not about necessarily hitting a bunch of missiles off of a guy. It's about setting the tone that if you make a mistake or you throw a strike that we're getting good swings off. Because it's a 9-inning game and you're trying to set the tone for the series as well that, hey, if you think you're going to middle balls and get away with it, you're wrong. And if you set that aggressive tone offensively, now that guy's a little bit worried like, hey, I can't throw this 0-0 fastball to a third anymore because every single one of these dudes is on time. Now I got to try to edge it. Well, guys start to edge stuff. Now you find yourself in 1-0 counts, and hitting gets a lot easier.
My favorite count. 1-0, your eyes have to light up. We had a really good year on 0-0 last year. I think we have a very coachable offense. It's still getting them to be okay coming out of their shoes on 1-0. You get asked more why questions than ever before right now. And I tell guys 1-0, we are sitting on a fastball. I don't care who's listening from our conference that wants to throw 1-0 curves or 1-0 changeups. We're hunting a fastball because more times than not, you're going to get that pitch. And if you miss, you're going to miss pull side foul. Fine. But just have some fun with that one. It goes back to later in the count. If it's the first 2 strikes, George Brett and the Kansas City Royals drove this home really well. The first 2 strikes are for you. The third strike's for the team. Like I want guys aggressive. I want them not afraid to fail. Go out there and hunt. But when you get the 2 strikes, hey, now it's about, hey, and you talk about this, a 9-inning game. Maybe you foul off 2 pitches and punch out after, but instead of a 4-pitch at bat, it's now being a 7-pitch at bat. That changes the next guy, or that changes 2 guys down the way because he might have seen something later that he goes back to. So it's trying to make guys understand, back to our original point about it's okay to fail, but be aggressive.
You touched on the social media stuff and the use of technology. So I think this is a good segue into this question. How do you use it for recruiting? Like, is it something that you focus in on? Is it something you use to supplement? Do you identify guys with it? Like, how does it play into what you guys do?
I love Twitter. I think it gets better by the day in terms of how many good accounts there are out there covering events. The New Jersey State games at Diamond Nation were a can't miss event. I was one of few Division threes there. I remember this in 2014. It was loaded, but I went and you saw great baseball. The last couple of years, I haven't been able to get there, but the amount of coverage of those events online, I feel like I was there. And what COVID taught us was how to use technology again, or how to really trust video. I remember we all had VHS tapes, where the three of us are old enough to have a VHS recruiting tape. Now guys can send you a tiny file and you can watch it, but Twitter's been great. We use that to identify guys. And then I don't go the direct message route the way I know some schools do. But if a kid's email address and cell phone is in there, we're going to contact that guy and tell them we like what we saw. Because again, there's so many highlights on there that you know who they're playing, you know who they're facing. There are no secrets anymore. I love that people talk about like, oh, like this guy's at every event. You can go to your event and be where your feet are, but you can also, in between games, check on another state, another tournament. Like I know while I'm at one event, hey, I'm going to be present. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do when I'm here. But, after that event's over, back in the hotel, I'm going to probably tune into something else I missed and see, hey, just because I wasn't able to go see a kid pitch doesn't mean there's not ways to find out how they did. And that's communicate with the travel coach and see. And that's, I think the travel programs, the best ones, have incredible social media presence in posting what coaches want to see. It's not about commitment graphics. It's about accurate rosters. It's about accurate contact information. Stop lying about GPAs. Like, honestly, travel coaches, get the transcript from each kid, and that's the GPA you put on there. Do not let that get filled out as I'm a 3.5. But you're not a 3.5. It's going to get recalculated. Get the transcript, have it on there. But we use it every day. Honestly, we're using Twitter, Instagram a little bit, but we're going to identify guys there and then try and see how we can go see them.
I love Twitter. It's amazing.
Need Elon to keep it where it's at. They're not. Don't mess with a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it opens up more doors, right? Like, and I did the same thing you're talking about. Like, you're on the West Coast at an event and there's something going on back east. Like, you could flip on your phone and some downtime and see a couple of things on your phone where you're like, wow, okay, like I need to go see that kid. Like, he's reached out to us. That's something that I need to get on when I get back east. But it opens up more doors and kind of makes it, I think for school, like when I was at RPI and for school, you're at Catholic, like you are recruiting nationally, right? Like, you're not just a regionally based school. So like you need to be able to have, a couple irons in the fire from all over the place. And this may, Twitter specifically, because we're talking about it here, like that makes it far easier and more accessible for you and the rest of the staff to be able to do it. I mean, I love Ross. I don't know how much Ross is on Twitter, but I feel like if Ross is on Twitter, like you guys would have a lot more guys on your list.
So he actually, and he doesn't mind me telling the story, he asked about Twitter the other day and was like, hey, is this something I need to be doing more of? I said, we're just going to keep sending you video from it, links to it, and that's all you have to do. Like, I just keep watching and, hey, teach them how to scroll and look out. But you touched on a big thing about national recruiting. My recruiting philosophy at Catholic has been I want to, like, our school's title is the Catholic University of America. That's been my goal, is that I want our roster to have kids from all over the country. We're not just the Catholic University of 95. Don't get me wrong. That's been our bread and butter for the longest time. But when we started changing our ranking regionally to nationally, it was on the heels of going out west, going south, going targeting a city a year. I did it with Charlotte, North Carolina. I identified a city in 2000. It was the end of 2013. For some reason, I'll give a shout out to Jeff Schaefer and Carolina Baseball Centers. But I remember meeting this guy who played at Maryland, played for the Mariners, for the White Sox, at an event. And he talked about Charlotte Catholic, Charlotte Christian, just a good starting point. But we also got a pitcher from Ardrey Kell in Charlotte that same year. And I've just tried to pick a city every year, usually with a strong Catholic parish, but we have all different faiths on our roster. So it's not limited to that, but hey, let's pick a different city, see how we can do this year in that city. It doesn't mean just because you picked that city or we've identified that city as a staff that we have to offer someone from there. There have been a couple that, hey, didn't work out, and that's fine. But you never know down the road. Some of those contacts we made high school coach wise could be a game-changing player.
Right. What now? You touched on this a little while ago when we were, you were talking about guys who, work on the things that suck. But how much do metrics factor into your guys' evaluation? Whether it's, you can pick what you want or kind of go on whatever, but like whether it's exit velo or 60 or arm velo, whatever that is, like, how much do you guys value that, and how much stock do you put in it in the process when you're recruiting?
It's not so the pitching velocity. That's going to trigger a text message or a phone call. I don't get married to exit velo on a video. It's more looking at a swing in an at bat when it comes to film or at a game, and I use those metrics after to either move the guy up on the list, or again, it's filtering tools. It's comparing it to if player A and player B do the same thing. I'm then going to look at the metrics and say, okay, he's faster. The numbers hopefully don't lie. Don't lie, listeners. Don't lie about your 60. Don't lie about your metrics. Please don't be that guy. Don't tell me if I ask you, what do you run? Don't say you run a 7.3 when really you're running a 7.6. Don't lie about it. That's important. But we use it as filtering tools. We're still going to trust our eyes and look at a skill set. And then go from there. Pitching, velo plays. If you're going to see, that's how winning is done, is pitching. So the metrics on the pitching side, not run and gun. Maybe I don't mean to speak for our pitching coaches, but we're talking in-game velocity. Still is going to trigger a text message or an email.
I want to ask you about the velo piece for pitchers. Because you've had some guys who throw hard.
Yep.
Right? Like, and you've had some guys that, one guy who's coming there in the fall, he made a 80 to 83 jump, and now he's 85, 88. But, like, you're probably not getting the dude who's 87 to 89 in high school right now.
It's rare. It's 85 to right now. Last year's class on the right-handed side was pretty much 84 to 86. There's a couple who are 85 to 87 on the left-handed side. As you said, it was 80, 83 at the high school recruiting period. You're looking at that kid, you're getting to know that kid, and then find out where you think that projectability and that velocity is going to be. You ask them questions. Again, it goes back to do they work on the stuff that sucks to work on? Because if they get in better shape, they're going to throw hard. So I talk about Division III recruiting a lot of times as similar to pro scouting, in that you're looking at how many tools they're going to develop. You're looking at an expected tool where we're not getting 4 tool players. We're getting 2 tool guys. We're getting a guy that can really hit and really run. And then what else is he going to develop glove wise? We're getting a kid that can really hit, but he runs a 7.7. The first All-American I coached was a 7.7 runner his senior year. And really could swing it from the left side, and they said the swing plays. The craziest part about Brennan Cotter was he didn't step on the field till his junior year when he started running a 7.3. Like, he had to get in college shape to do that. So to your question, we're going to at least shoot our shot on some guys, especially in this age of the log jam where it's the golden age of college baseball. The 20-round draft doesn't do it justice. Because if we were in a 46-round draft, we'd see more Division III players drafted than ever before, because a 20-round draft changes baseball. College baseball has never been better across the board. So you shoot your shot. I mean, just kid goes to a school that we've recruited really well. I'm going to have a conversation with his high school coach, and I want to be at the top of his D3 list. Am I realistic that it's rare that kids pick Division III over Division I? That you have to have self-awareness in this industry, and a lot of times they're going with the Division I. They're going with the sticker on the back. And I do tell kids a lot that I don't necessarily blame them. I don't believe in wrong choices. We just hope that the choice you make is with us. But you shoot your shot. You at least reach out and you say, this 86 to 88 guy, you might want to pitch right away here. You might, or you can if you live up to your potential, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to play. We've chased velo before, and it hasn't worked. Whereas we've lost to guys in tournaments in the conference or in the NCAAs that were 79 to 81 in the recruiting process on the left side, and they've given us a fit.
What did a kid like Tucker Oates look like in high school? He's the one who sticks out to me because, he's a 90, 93 righty, like
6 foot. He was 6'4", throwing 82 to 84, but very projectable, clean mechanics, great bounce back the next day. If you get the luxury of seeing a kid pitch back-to-back days, you'll know right away. If they sustain that velocity over 2 days and 2 outings, circle that name and pursue that kid. And that has a lot to do with the shape they're in. If they can bounce back even 2 days later, the last week, 2 weeks ago up in Boston, a kid pitched on a Monday and was 84 to 86. And on Wednesday, he was 83 to 85. And right away, that told me this kid on 2 days rest came in for 1 inning to help his team win, that he sustains that. But yeah, Tucker was not throwing an 86 mile per hour fastball until he got to us in the fall. He had a breakout senior year his spring because he worked really hard that winter and didn't rest on, hey, I'm just going to do the same thing. He kept getting better. And then each year there was 2 miles per hour, 3 miles per hour, because he was consistently challenging himself to work on those things, whether it's playing in the summer against better competition and finding out real fast that you're not as good as you think you are, or asking some hard questions of scouts or other coach. Like I have no problem asking other coaches, hey, what'd you think of someone? And really good ones will share that information. But it's about projectability and trying to get to know that player and see that they have it in them to add another tool.
I like that.
I'm still going to – the name that comes to mind, that Ross and Tolley had Randy Bednar, went to Maryland, came to our camp as a freshman. I threw him BP. He hit 6 out in 10 swings. I remember Ross offering him. And I laugh about it to this day, but at the same time, it's like, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen over the course of a career? And people, I think, pick best fit now a little bit more than ever because the transfer portal scared them. So I really do think that guys are finally starting to worry less about the bumper sticker and actually get on campus, get to know the team, and say, yeah, I can see myself getting better here.
Yeah, I used to always, you and I have had this conversation long before this podcast, but I have always been of the belief of make the kid tell you no.
Right.
And especially nowadays, it's, I would much rather reach out to a kid and be like, hey, this is what we got. We're interested. Let us know if you are. And if they're not, fine. If they are, awesome. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to get that kid, but at the very least, your foot's in the door, and now you can have a conversation about what's going on in your program and how to move forward.
Absolutely. Take your shot. It goes for coaching too. It's players email, reach out to schools, coaches do the same. You never know in a way who's on the other line, what their connection might be, who had a family member that came here, or who, right? I think it's funny. Sometimes players don't look at coaches' bios. I'll get a kid from my home high school or rival high school, didn't read my bio and says I go to Middletown South, and I respond right away. It's like, all right, tell me how the cafeteria is doing. It's like we're not looking for timid ever.
You talked about the metrics, but we got to ask you this question too. Rankings. How much do they play in for you?
Maybe this is the old school piece of me. I still wait and see who's made what newspaper or major publications, all state and all conference and all division. I can't tell you the state rankings of our players. The one year I got really married to their perfect game ranking and where we were in that recruiting class. Some of those guys have done well. Some of those guys haven't. I think there's so much subject and objectivity on both ends of all of it. I still wait to see how guys did at the end of the year. But I'm not. You can't. It's what I say. It's like sometimes if you start chasing velo, bad things happen. Sometimes if you start chasing a perfect game ranking or a PBR ranking more than trusting your eyes, things can go south quickly. But it's not for us. I can't tell you what Mac Mira was ranked on PBR, but I can tell you that he was all Mercer County and made the Carpenter Cup team. I can't tell you what Jacob Scarless's PBR New York profile ranking was, but I know he won a state for the first time since 2004 when a certain tattooed catcher did a pretty good job there at Columbia High.
2004 Columbia High School, baby. That's right.
Oh, that's great. Well, that segues into high school stats. Like, I don't know, my stance has always been they matter, but they don't. Like, you always have to take them within context, but being really good is a good place to start. But I'd be curious to get your thoughts on, like, how you read into that. Like, you have a really good pulse on specific areas and the level of competition, which I think is really important to understand that, like, not all 400s are created equal. But what are your thoughts on that?
It's strength of schedule. Yeah, and I've had a public high school player in a weak conference be a 3-year all-conference guy. I've had a Catholic school 1-year varsity player be a 3-year all-conference guy. So it is not all 400s are created equal. Know who they're playing against. Try and see how they've done against certain pitchers. There are no secrets anymore. You can look the stuff up. It's not the coolest girl in school doing the book anymore. As we all had, shout out to all of the different managers we had at Middletown South that did the book for us back in the day. It's about who they're playing against and do they play winning baseball? I still talk to high school coaches as much as I talk to travel coaches because I want to know, do they play winning baseball and what are they like on a day-to-day basis? The first question I asked a high school coach last week was, what's he like as a teammate? Because that is the day-to-day. That's who's going to be with us on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, high school stats matter, but this is baseball. There are guys that are going to have breakout senior years, and this is a Division III characteristic. I mean, against guys I played against in high school who I thought were surefire D1 guys that didn't have a big year till their senior spring, and the only schools that were recruiting them were Division IIIs. So you're recruiting guys before their best season, because if their school's any good, their best year is going to be their senior year. So it goes back to projection. Hey, he might not have played a lot as a junior because there was an all-state guy in front of him. What's he going to do next spring? That's what you're going to ask the high school coach. And a good high school coach will be able to tell you.
Yeah, I think the high school piece, and that, we've talked about that on here as well. Like the amount of stock that gets put into it without the context behind it, I think is the important piece. Because there's so much more that goes into your numbers and who you're playing against and what you're doing. Because sometimes that 500 against super soft competition isn't going to necessarily translate into the next level. Whereas that grind out 300 against, really, really good competition is going to play at the college level, because that's what you're going to see day in and day out. So I think those are the hard things to kind of get people to think about, because it's like, well, yeah, he hit 470. Like, okay, but against who? Like what? Like was this a bet against like 68 to 70 every day, or are we like upper 70s, low 80s day in and day out, and really good high school pitching? Like what does that look like?
We still go watch. We still go watch high school games because of it. And what high school games are we going to watch? We're going to watch the state playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're getting the best, what should be the best in the state at that time.
And with that added pressure bonus, they're. I love the way certain states do it, where over the course of one day, with a place with lights and a place without, you could see two games in one day within 25, 30 minutes of each other, and you're going to see four teams. And I joked to try to. My father wanted to come on a recruiting trip one year, and it was really just to go watch a smaller school divisional championship state semifinal. He wanted to go to the big game where all the scouts were going to be. But I was like, listen, all these guys are committed. We got to go to this game. And you got there, watch IO for both teams. You might see something in IO that says, okay, I missed this kid. This kid's on, I haven't seen this kid yet. I might see him in a year or two. But those are the high school games I want to watch because good teams and the added pressure bonus to it. There have been names circled from an IO and a high school coach that said, yeah, this kid's he's a rising, he'll be a junior next September. Or he'll be a senior, but he hasn't played a whole hell of a lot yet. But he took IO before a state game and he played like it meant it.
Right. And I think the important piece of that too is that you're constantly being evaluated, right? Like it doesn't stop once you actually commit and get to college. Like you're going to be evaluated every single day by the coaching staff, and that like it's a constant in your life. Like when you opt into wanting to play high level college baseball, like, and I should just say if you opt in to play college baseball, because like you're going to be pretty good no matter where you end up. Like you're opting into the competition and the fact that you're going to be judged and critiqued and coached literally every single day for the next 4 or 5. If we have another pandemic, 7, 8, 9 years of your college career.
Get that master's degree.
I got guys in RPI getting their PhD. Come on. Playing 6 years of college baseball, walking out there with a doctorate degree. It's amazing.
PhD from Delaware.
PhD from Delaware. I got 2 other guys that are in the PhD program there. Well, they're not my guys anymore, but I'll still call them my guys forever. But they're in the PhD program. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I joked with one of our guys who just finished up at Villanova with his MBA, and I joked when I said, the hitting facility named after your family is going to look great here with that Villanova MBA, but guys want to chase it and keep playing. I love it. Like, it's a really special time in college baseball. It can be really complicated and really disheartening at times, but this is the best it's ever looked. And I think a message out from this is it's never been easier to watch college baseball or ever. Like our guys watch almost too much at times. Like it's really cool to hear the conversations on Saturday morning. Our guys watching their buddies playing college the way we watch our buddies coaching. It's like I can't believe how much Friday night Division I baseball I've watched on ESPN Plus the last 4 years. It's been great. And you learn stuff from it. Like it's one thing to be watching your buddy's coach, but you're going to pick up on something. And it's the same way. Players, please be self-aware. And you watch these games online. Are you better than this kid? Ask yourself that. No, I'm not better than him. You see the deal. I'm as good as he is. And be confident and be yourself, but be self-aware. And we ask kids all the time at camps or at clinics, like, how many of you have seen a Division III baseball game? And I'm thrilled to hear guys raise their hands and say, I have, because I've watched them online, and that's awesome. Like there's I gotta keep saying it, there are no secrets anymore. Like just you're able to watch serious college baseball, and really good feeds are going to have metrics on there for those guys that are chasing numbers, and that's fine, but be self-aware about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the easiest it's been ever, which is awesome. Like I just I flip it on and we just sit there and watch baseball all day. It's amazing. I love it.
But like you're in the what do they call it, the DMV?
Yeah.
Right. We're not too far from each other. We were a lot closer before I moved.
Right.
used to pop over to Catholic games, mysteriously pop in and see you and Ross. But like if you're in an area like DC, go to a game. Like
Sundays,
Georgetown, GW, Catholic, George Mason, Maryland. Like I'm missing a bunch, but if you're in one of these metropolitan areas and you're not going to a Sunday noon start when you're not playing,
you're missing it.
You're missing it. Go see what Tucker Alch looks like in person. Like go see what the Catholic roster looks like in person. And then pop over and go see GW and start to see the differences and the similarities. And I think it's a huge part of the self-awareness piece that you're talking about. But I also think it's a part of the education of it, which is why we started doing this in general, is most people don't know how good you have to be to play college, period. Never mind played at a really high level. And when you go see the different tiers of college baseball, you start to realize there's some really good players everywhere. And that, Division III baseball isn't, it's not, I think Keith refers to it, it's not 13th grade. Like you need to be good, period. And it doesn't really hit home until you go and watch and you're like, oh, okay. That first baseman, 6'3", 200 pounds, and has got 11 home runs this year. I hit 1 in high school last year. All right, well, there's definitely a gap. And I think that that's important for people to experience. See how the game is played.
Before parents sink all this money into the process, use those Sundays. And it's the recruiting process is absolutely exhausting for parents. But if you can take a couple Sundays and go watch one D3 game, one D2 game, one D1 game, and by all means go watch a JUCO game too, you're going to know right away, can I or can I not compete at this level?
Yep. And I think and we talk about this, but the game, it's a different game, right? It's still 60 feet 6, still 90 feet in between bases. What's the distance between home and second, Keith?
127, 3 3/8 of an inch.
Exactly.
Love catcher.
That doesn't change, but how the game is played, the level of detail, the level of precision, the tempo, the speed, it's different. It's a team game. It's about winning. You're playing offense. You're not hitting. You're playing defense. You're not just pitching. Like it's a much more complete game that isn't dominated by a couple really good players who can have a huge impact on a game. And that's an important thing to not only understand as you go through the process, but it's also an important thing as you get ready to go onto a college campus, that you're not there just to take batting practice and throw hard. Like you need to learn how to operate as a college player. You need to be able to do, to your point, first 2 strikes are for you, third strike's for the team. Like those are things that in college baseball, they matter. Like a ball in play, an 8-pitch at bat, like the trickle down effect it has into a series and how it can change how a series plays out. Like those are the nuances that it's hard to appreciate it. It's hard to get educated on it without actually seeing it and watching it.
Yeah, I think the if you live, this is a general blanket statement I'm going to make here, but if you live essentially from New England to the Mid-Atlantic, that you can see so many really good baseball teams play across all 3 divisions that like you really don't have an excuse to not really like at least try. Right, like you're not going to be able to do it every week, but like you can go watch the SEC and the ACC on ESPN Plus, the ACC Network. You can do all that from the comfort of your own home. But like, like when I was at RPI, like you had RPI, Skidmore, Union, Albany, Siena, St. Rose. You can cover all 5. You can cover all 3 divisions right there. And St. Rose, St. Rose is they've had better years of late, but like they also play in the NE10, which is like the NE47. But that's like Franklin Pierce and Southern New Hampshire. Like there's really, really good Division II baseball teams in that league. Like go find one of those games and watch them. You got Siena, they're in the MAC. New Albany, Merrick East. It's Division I baseball. Go watch it. It's super easy. I live in Rochester now. You have U of R, RIT, St. John Fisher are all really good. You can get to Buffalo in an hour, a little over. Go watch Canisius and Niagara. Nothing's in Syracuse, unfortunately. Well, no, Lemoyne. I take it back. Lemoyne's now Division I in Syracuse. They were Division II. But
they were Division I back in the day with us, and they were really freaking good when Steve Owens was running the show.
Oh yeah, they had a bunch of big leaguers out of those teams. Perino.
Yeah, they were really good. But yeah, I mean, it gets to the point like if you live near a city in the Northeast, you don't really have an excuse to not go see games. Yeah, you might have to drive an hour, but you drive 3.5 hours to go to some rinky-dink travel ball tournament in July. Drive an hour and a half and go watch a really good college game. It's fun, and you learn. You get to see the campus. There's a ton of benefits to it.
You might get a hoodie out of the deal from the bookstore. Who knows?
Who knows? Ice cream post game. I don't know. So, all right, we digress. What else you got here, Keith? I know what our closer is. It's a standard question.
Well, I was going to say, you'd mentioned earlier, when you open up the weight room earlier for guys, how much do you guys how much do you value the guys being in the weight room prior to getting to campus, and how much do you guys get in the weight room once they're on campus?
Similar to the not all 400s are created equal, not all high school strength programs are created equal. A lot of guys train with personal trainers. A lot of guys do their training with travel teams. We know there's going to be a building block phase when they first get there, and we want to cover key lifts, bench, deadlift, squat, make sure everyone's doing things correctly. During the Division III fall season, we try and do 2 days a week as a team. Once the fall season's over, we're 4 days a week as a team. When we get back in January, it's probably 3 days a week as a team. I know we try and avoid cliches on this show, but the weight room's not for everybody. Neither is playing time. It is one of those, your gains and how you're doing against the person to the left and the person to the right, you will pass them if you put the time in there efficiently and do what you're supposed to do, and don't put yourself and your personal goals ahead of what's going to help you on the field. Don't be lifting because someone told you to do this workout and then be sore the next day and not be able to perform and be evaluated. But you've got to put that time in, because someone else is going to take that message about projectability and getting from here to here, player development wise, and they're going to put that time in. If you don't, someone else is going to.
It's got to be the biggest gap for kids is the physicality piece. How do you become a college baseball player? You need to get strong. You need to get fast. You need to throw things hard. You need to hit things hard. A really good way to do it is to be in the weight room. And I mean, I can't stress it enough. It's one of the biggest gaps for a high school kid, in my opinion, is how quickly can you get acclimated from a physicality perspective? I mean, what was the number they had for the Division I College World Series? The average weight of the players on the 8 rosters was 205 pounds. Florida's average weight was 217. Don't tell me that being big and strong and athletic isn't a difference maker. And genetics plays a role in it, but those kids you have the ability to impact that due to some hard work. You can control that to a certain extent.
That graphic they posted was the most important stat of the College World Series this year.
I think that's a fair statement, Coach Picardo. So that segues into, I think, our final question. We got 2 questions to close this out. One, what do you think is the biggest learning curve for kids when they get to campus?
It's easy to say time management, but it really is, because instead of having 7 classes, practice, go home, do it again the next day, you might have 2 classes. You might have 3. You might be done every day at noon, and you've got a good 4 hours before practice. What are you doing in those 4 hours? You might be at a school where practice is from 12 to 2. What are you doing with the rest of that time? And it's how you use that downtime. And I'm not saying it has to be all work all the time, because the thing I missed most about college when I first graduated was that shared downtime. But what I didn't do enough of that I try and really drive home as a coach is we try and get a little bit of homework done before we come to the field, before we come to the gym, get a little bit of work done before, so it allows you to spend that much more time in the dining hall hanging out at the table with the guys. Like I miss that. Like I love those times. But it's a lot easier if you can get a little bit of work done before school. But that's it. It's time management. It really is. Like it's such a cliche answer. But if that's free time, you have so much more free time. It's like everyone in college goes through that phase where the nap becomes a part of their staple. Because it's great. You can go to sleep for a little while, but it's, what are you doing with all that extra downtime? Because you've never had this much free time. You've never had this many distractions. You've never been. College at times is not reality. It's not the real world. It's a completely different experience. So what are you doing with that downtime? Like how you spend that time is going to affect everything you do, whether it be academically, athletically, or career-wise, because too often we talk about just academics and baseball. It's got the career piece has to be a part of this as well.
It's a great answer. Keith, you want to provide the closing question for Coach Picardo?
Bookend. What advice would you give to anyone who's going to play college baseball this fall?
Close the yearbook. No one wants to hear about how good your high school team was. Don't wear your varsity jacket. Don't wear your championship ring. Close the yearbook. No one, and the biggest one as a Division III coach, no one cares what Division I's were recruiting you. You're here. So be where your feet are, stop, and close the yearbook.
God, that's such a good answer.
I can't believe that I still think back to I'm not gonna say their names, but I still think back to the guys that I remember fall of freshman year, guys talking about what Division I's were recruiting them. Well, they did not. You're here, so and there were seniors that year that were just, they had a lot of pride by then, and that's when we struggled. We were a 15-win team my freshman year. We won 29 games my junior year, but by that time, it's only the freshmen that ever talk about their high school team or what schools were recruiting them or how many of their teammates went Division I. Cool. Awesome. Close the yearbook.
Yeah. No one likes the freshman who wants to make sure that they tell you how good they are.
It's about now, not about last May.
No. And it's what are you going to do to help us win here? Like what you did there does nothing for me. So what do you bring to the table every day to help us win here? Because that's really what we're all in this for.
Well, Coach Picardo, do you have any closing thoughts?
I think the self-awareness piece is what I could get across to not only players but coaches too. Be self-aware and really try and listen twice as much as you speak. And this is coming from someone who never shuts up. The true growth comes from really starting to listen and not necessarily speak.
Coach Glass, any
you don't shut
remarks?
up, Bobby? Is that what you just said? You're the unofficial mayor of college baseball, and I would have it no other way.
The position I hold with great honor. We get to do this for a living. It's awesome.
You're the best, Bobby. We are delighted that you joined us today. Can't thank you enough. I know enjoying a little downtime with the family, much deserved. Please tell them all we said hello.
Oh, they'll be listening as soon as the episode comes out.
Fantastic. Well, for all of you who are watching on YouTube, Keith, what's the direction?
Smash it. Smash the like button. Smash subscribe. Smash it, Bobby.
Oh, we will.
Baseball at Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to find out more about what me and Keith do to help families navigate the recruiting process, check us out on www.emdbaseball.com on the interwebs. Coach Picardo, once again, can't thank you enough. Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys, and we'll see you soon.